Hello, everybody. I am Lindsay Zilli. I am the Director of Professional Learning for Illinois Digital Educators Alliance. I'm so glad to see many of you here today. We have some great coaches joining us that have given us some of their time, which is incredible. So Vanessa, Colleen, and Kristen, I'll ask you to hop on in 1 second. Before I introduce them, I'd really just want to give a big thank you to everybody for all of the work that you're doing. It's obvious that, you know, it's a community effort and we're all working together towards, you know, making sure that our learners' needs are met regardless of their age range, regardless of the community they live in. So a big thank you to all of you. If you wouldn't mind making sure that your microphone and camera are muted during the chat. I'm going to let Colleen and Vanessa and Kristen introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of start them off with some questions. But then if you have any questions at any point, you can drop them in the chat. But we also know that the smartest person in the room is the room. So if you have some answers to questions or some best practices that seem to be working for you, please feel free to answer questions as well as you see them come up. At the end of the time together today, we will be giving PDHs for this session, and we will be recording both the video as well as the chat transcript so that we can share that with you once we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with Colleen first, and then maybe Vanessa, you can follow, and Kristen thereafter. And I'm going to go ahead and mute myself now. So.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Colleen Kaplan. I'm the Technology Integration Specialist at St. Francis High School in Wheaton. We're a private 9 through 12 high school. We are one-to-one with Microsoft Surface Pros, and we're a Microsoft Showcase school. So if you've got questions on Office 365, OneNote, a lot of that, I am a great person to ask. We are just learning Teams. We did a very fast Teams rollout within the past 2 weeks. So I have some knowledge on Teams, but I'm also still learning. All right, going back on mute.
Hey, this is Vanessa with Earl. I teach K-5 Tech and Library in Alexis, Illinois at United North. We are not one-to-one, but we have Chromebooks that we have in our elementaries, junior high, and our high school. This is, like everybody else, our second week of just trying to figure this all out. And we are trying to not, you know, change things midstream, but trying to figure out what's working for us and how can we make this a little more efficient. So yeah, I'm excited about this, excited to share what we're doing, excited to learn more about what other people are doing and see what we can do together.
Kristen, you're up.
Yep. Hey, everybody. Hold on, I'll start my video because I know it's weird. My name's Kristen Stern, and I am a K-12 instructional tech in Batavia Public Schools. Currently, I'm working as an instructional coach in one of our elementaries. I've been in that role for about 5 years, and we are one-to-one kindergarten or first grade through 12th grade with Chromebooks. We are a Google district, and I'm Google certified, so I'm happy to help with all the Googly things. I'm also here. I can also help with Seesaw. I'm a Seesaw ambassador and Pear Deck. So, and as Amber will probably tell you, I love Google Sheets. So if you have any Sheets questions, I can help with that too.
I was just going to say that. You read my mind.
Right. I'm a Sheets nerd. I'm happy to help.
Kristen has helped us numerous times within the organization of helping us with our processes. So
thank goodness.
Much thanks. Much thanks.
So if everyone else who's on the chat right now wouldn't mind putting in your kind of grade level that you're seeing, whether you're a content specialist or a coach, you know, what age range are you working with, and maybe the devices that your district has access to, so we can kind of get a better feel of how to run this coaching session. But we want to make sure we meet everybody's needs as well. So please just fire away with any questions you might have. So I just kind of want to start with asking a question to all three coaches. What seems to be going well with your particular districts? Vanessa, do you want to start just kind of, you know, one thing that seems to be working pretty well for all of you and your teachers?
Yeah, I'll get started here. So this last week and a half, we tried to take the approach of just kind of letting everybody get settled, get acquainted, kind of figure out what their new normal is going to be for the next short little while. Because ISB says no grading, for detriment, can hurt. We have pushed out some different things. We have a spreadsheet that the entire district has collaborated on, and there's different grades, for each tab at the bottom. I think that's going well. We pushed that sheet out to all parents, and they were able to check in and get, maybe 20 different, I think it's like 20 ideas in first grade, 20 ideas in second grade, third grade. We have links. Some are digital resources, some are non-digital resources. And then those spreadsheets, all of those pages got printed out. And so everybody that was picking up meals from the locations could request a printed out set of the instructions. So then if they didn't have a computer at home, they could at least get a set of things that they could be working on. Those things some of them were academically focused, some of them were just things you can do at home to help reiterate things that were done in the classroom and move on from there. Our junior high and high school, I believe they were going to start letting kids take Chromebooks home soon. We are looking at getting access points put on the outside of our buildings, so then parents and kids, like, they can pull up and work in the parking lots, as weird as that sounds. And I know I've seen other districts talk about doing the same thing. So I think we've got that going for us. That's going well. Really, it's just we focused hard on that communication piece and relationship piece this last week and a half, and every teacher was asked to make sure to make contact with every kid every few days, whether it was through text, whether a phone call, whether a Zoom, whether a Facebook Live with responses, however it was, just to check in with the kids, because they're doing about as well as we are, and they just need to know we're here for them. So getting that connection with them has been a big piece for us the last week and a half. But not knowing exactly what's coming for the days after March 30th or 31st or whatever, that's our next big focus, and we're working on that right now. Working on getting, again, not trying to change things midstream, but realizing, okay, maybe this sheet wasn't exactly the way we wanted to do that. Looking at maybe we can build a site that might organize things a little better, and how teachers can put information into that without having to access the site, maybe through a doc that's tagged with their name, that kind of thing. Trying to figure that out. But relationships have been our biggest focus just the last week and a half. So
I think that's great. Relationships are always the thing that I focus on first in the classroom anyway. So to think, okay, we're doing school totally different right now, so let's just go back to the way that we started the school year. And for me, that's culture, that's relationships. Yeah. There's so much impacting our kids right now that's not academics. They need to see us, they need to hear us, and it's out of many of our comfort zones to do videos and try and set up these virtual meetings, but it is really necessary. I think the other good point is that you were making is not inundating parents and students. I'm sorry, you can probably hear my kids in the background. Work from home life, right? So is not inundating parents with messages all day long, so they're not getting, like the Seesaw post 15 times a day where they're like, okay, now what am I supposed to do? But like really focusing on chunking it with your shared sheet that you have, I think makes a huge difference to get people to buy in to actually try to do the content that you're creating for them.
Right. And this week we had everybody and sharing out what their different things from content. There was a spot for the tech and library teachers. There's a spot for the music teacher, the PE teacher. But moving forward, we've talked about we need to scale that back. And if we're going to ask teachers, especially not knowing how we have to respond with keeping student attendance, et cetera, coming up, is that something we're going to have to do? Just trying to think ahead. My suggestion, we're going to go forward with pulling away from content area, like the specials, delivering content, and having parents focus on reporting and meeting with the teacher. But then all of us specials teachers have been assigned grade levels that we collaborate with. So we're there to support, we're there to make contact with parents, help ease the work of our our content teachers, our classroom teachers, without me just sitting back and just going, okay, well, now I have nothing to do, but I can be a supportive role and I can help share that work too. So I'm excited to see that, because otherwise our parents would have 4 different teachers to report to, and that's per kid. And that is not realistic. Not at an elementary level when they're not used to that.
Exactly. That's a great point too. It's dangerous to add too much new to this kind of new way that we do school. So, I mean, even your point with just working off of a shared Google Doc, that can be the way that you communicate with parents and students right now. It doesn't have to be this fancy new tool, because I'm sure people are overwhelmed by all of the ed tech companies that are saying, here's something free, here's another thing free. And that's great. Thank you so much to those companies for supporting us. But sometimes it's too much. And sometimes it's too much at the district level, the directive to be, just meet your students' needs where they're at. You'd almost rather have some more set parameters. And I think we need to provide that for ourselves, give ourselves permission, and also for our learners. So thank you, Vanessa, for sharing. Colleen, do you have anything that's working particularly well right now in your district?
Yeah, so we are a private school, so we have things slightly differently than some of the public schools. So for us, grades are counting because it's a decision that our school can make on their own. We made the decision, we closed sort of after all of our students went home. So our students went home on Friday, and then the decision to close that upcoming Monday was made after the kids already went home. So we didn't have really any FaceTime with the kids before they left to check in and be like, here's what we're gonna do, here's our plan. It had to be done all virtually. So what we did, and I'm dropping a YouTube link in the chat window, is for like 5 days, all I did was make screencasts. We've got screencasts on everything now because we also didn't have a ton of time to get the teachers to a point where they were feeling super comfortable going completely remote and completely paperless. Essentially, we've got a lot of teachers where they are old school and they do things on paper, and we were telling them they had to go completely virtual because we have things that we need to contend with, like making sure the kids are prepared for things like ACT tests, college acceptance, not college acceptances, applications. We have things like AP tests that are still happening at the high school level that we have to keep kids and keep in contact with the kids, keep the learning going, because that stuff's not stopping, or at least they haven't said so yet. So we put a ton of videos online. We put all of the information online, and then we talked to the families about what we were going to do. So we said, here are all of our resources. So there's resource videos for students on how to use the certain websites that we were focusing on. Here's all of the resources for teachers for how to set things up. We are focusing on just a small amount of apps and websites to keep everybody funneled through the same couple things. So we're not trying to introduce a lot of new things, which is really hard when all of these websites that used to have massive paywalls and were really pricey are now free for till July, which is great. But that means we're also, like, teachers are trying to like branch off, which is not what we want right now. So we are we're actually telling our teachers no a lot right now because they want to try all the shiny new toys, but we want them focused on the same couple things. And then if this does go past our spring break, right now our tentative comeback date is April 8th. If it does go past that, then we're going to look at adding on like 2, maybe 3 more apps to focus on. But we're trying to keep everybody on the same. We're using Nearpod for PowerPoints, for student-based PowerPoints. We're using Flipgrid for video-based discussion boards. We're using screencasting and PlayPosit for that sort of like watching videos and answering questions. And then we're using our LMS, which we use Blackbaud Whipple Hill's on campus solution, where we have written discussion boards. And then we also have OneNote. We did a very fast rollout of Teams, which worked pretty well. It has a video conferencing feature just like this that we're using. So our kids are able to do all of that sort of still within the school ecosystem. And that's why we're liking Teams, because it's still linked to all of their school resources with their school email. We didn't have to make separate Zoom accounts, all of that. Like, it was already just sort of built in and baked in. So that was nice. So one less thing for us to worry about. But our biggest thing was limiting. Like use these couple options, because we try to pick things that really hit the main content that we're doing or the main types of teaching that we're doing. And then we can reassess moving forward if we need to. So we're still trying to take it very day by day and not just like it's a fire hose. Like it's like you're drinking from a fire hose with all of the different apps that keep getting thrown at you that are now free, which is great, but it's too many options, especially when a lot of them do similar things. So we're just picking one. Yeah, we're picking one. We're sticking with it as a school.
And
so
I think
that's what we're doing.
I think your original mindset is let's just give them everything, but it's
Right.
I think what your district is doing is right, Colleen. You know, do a couple of things well and not try and spread yourself too thin. So
also for the parents and the students, otherwise they're looking at 8 different places. Is the call in Teams or is it in Zoom? Is my PowerPoint on a screencast? Is it on Nearpod? Where do I go? So the more we limit, the easier it is overall, which seems counterintuitive. But the more we limit, the better it's going to go in the long run.
exactly.
But also feel free to look at those videos if you want videos. There are Flipgrid tutorials, Nearpod tutorials, and a lot of like office stuff, things like that. So that's what our playlist is, that the YouTube link that I dropped in the chat window.
Thanks for sharing that, Colleen.
Kristen, is there some things that are working for you in your schools?
Yeah, so we did have some notice or kind of anticipation that things were going to shift. So we spent a couple days kind of locked in a room trying to problem solve what that might look like. So we were able to get Chromebooks to our 4th and 5th graders, and then after we shut down, we got them to as many kids as could come get them for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And what we did was we put out for our K-5 students a 5 days of things to do. So it came from the entire district. It was not spectacular in any way, shape, or form. It was some online books. It was some math problems to practice. It was a couple PE things and a couple music things. But our attempt to do that was to slow everything down and not have people frantically trying to get things ready and have it not work. So we were able to get an institute day in on the Tuesday where teachers could team with myself or the principal or whoever was the coach. And
We'll wait just a second for Kristen. Oh, there we go. Kristen, you cut out for just a second. If you can kind of yep.
Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I have a husband who works from home and there's a lot of teenagers here, so I think they might be borrowing my broadband. So we said Google Classroom and Seesaw, and my favorite thing that our students or our teachers did is they either put together a Google Doc or they put together a Google slideshow, so 1 slide per subject area, and that's what they have been pushing out every day to either Google Classroom or Seesaw, and then the kids can just see what they need to do, and it's anything that's on there is something they're already familiar with that they have done in class. So whether they're watching a YouTube video, like a read aloud and then responding to some questions, or doing IXL, you know, some things in IXL, or they're doing things that they were already comfortable with. So we very much said the same thing. We don't want our kids accessing all those freebies out there. They're really great and amazing. But from home, parents who are getting 4 emails for each of their at-home kids, they were saying, we're overwhelmed. We don't know all this technology. And so, and some of our kids didn't, our K3 kids didn't pick up their Chromebooks. So they're trying to do it on their parents' computer and helping them figure out how to log into Google with your school address. Those were, I think I spent 2 solid days making user guides, you know, really user-friendly for parents and user-friendly for kids of here are the things to log in from home.
Kristen, would you be willing to share those user guides?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I think any way that we can support families across the state where we're not all reinventing the same things would be greatly appreciated. And if anybody else has any other parent support guides or infographics, please drop them in the chat. We can start a shared folder or a Wakelet so that, you know, we're all working together. That would be great.
We also turned on Google Meet. I know there's some stuff in the chat about it. We didn't have students have access to it before. We got a notification today that we went from having a handful of Google Meets to 1,200 last week. So our teachers and our families and our students are really taking advantage, but our district has it so students can't start a meet, they can only join one. So those are really being teacher driven, and I really give a lot of kudos to all the teachers in the district and across the state who are hopping on stuff like this and for the first time. So it's been really neat to watch.
So I love that Mia put in the chat that she shared with a teacher recently about rethinking a quiz and not looking at it as paper document, but assessing the skill. And this was something that we really ended up organically talking about during our office hours yesterday, was the importance, especially during e-learning time, at looking at the skills. And that with Mia's suggestion was assessing the skill through a Google Meet or Hangout. Love that idea because it brings back in what Vanessa said originally. It's also a way for you to connect with your students also. So I think that that's a fabulous idea. I don't know if Vanessa, Colleen, or Kristen have any thoughts or perspective on kind of making that switch to looking at skill development rather than a big focus on content. So Kristen, you're nodding your head. Do you have some things you can share about that?
I feel like that has been a big conversation. I mean, we were already shifting to try to get people to focus on skills. Our high school is using standards-based grading right now, but for our elementary teachers, we had to kind of have that shift on that elementary institute day that we had, the virtual institute day, of don't worry about, let's go back to those Common Core standards. What are the skills that we need them to have, and what are the things that you need to have evidence that they can do that? And for us, Seesaw for our K-3 students, where they can model and demonstrate, has been pretty much really the go-to for whether it's reading, because they can do some read-alouds, they can look at fluency. But our 4th and 5th grade students, our teachers are really looking at much more authentic assessments, which is neat, of student skills rather than a paper and pencil type thing. And some of them have logged in and started using a little bit of Google Forms quizzes just to kind of give kids that instant feedback. But really, I would say Padlet has been one of our bigger ones where kids can kind of log in and kind of explain their thinking and get feedback from not only their teacher, but from other students as well.
That's a great suggestion. Can you speak to, I'm interested on the Padlet one a little bit more. So can you kind of describe what that looks like?
Sure, I have a bunch of teachers using Padlet. Padlet hasn't offered more boards for free at this moment, so I'm hoping that maybe they consider that. You are limited to 3 boards, but you can reuse them, or if you had more before. So one of my teachers, every day, the kids had a question that they would walk into, and so it might be
She's keeping us hanging.
she's had to keep that community going. But on another board, she has her book chats. So where, somebody's using my.
You're fine.
Okay,
yep.
Where they had book clubs, she's posting a question at the top, and she's kind of got it divided up by book, and kids can then post answers to their questions there, and they can respond back to each other. And so she's mostly just moderating that. She's not in and so the questions that she's had are ones that she would have asked in class anyway, or that they might have done as they were reading the books, because she's got 5 different books going. But really, she's just moderating that, and that lets her see where those students' thinking skills are at. And it's bringing in the writing piece, it's bringing in the thinking piece, it's bringing in those Common Core state standards. And then if she's not feeling like she's getting enough, she can say, could you give me more information on that? Or can you explain this more? So it's becoming this virtual conversation with her 5th graders. And honestly, she said, I think I'm getting more out of them virtually than I might have gotten if we were sitting in a circle, because they don't have that fear of speaking in front of the other students.
That's a great point. Colleen, I know I was going to say, I saw
Yep,
you.
I know, I saw the hand.
I'm just not sure how we're doing it all. But we had a bit of a conversation in person with the teachers, because we had a Monday training day, and then everybody went home on Tuesday and just never came back. But we had a talk about it initially, because a lot of teachers wanted to we use Dino for classroom management software is what they call it. It's like you can see everybody's screens, you can put them into groups and block apps and things like that. So teachers wanted to know if they were going to have the ability to do that from home, because they wanted to give assessments and they wanted to give their tests. And we had to stop everybody and have a conversation and say, the way you are teaching is going to change. Like, it's going to change. You're not going to be able to use your same assessments anymore. You're going to have to start thinking of things in a different way. And we had wanted to make a push for more project-based or problem-based learning anyways, because it's more authentic. This is really kind of giving us the framework to encourage those teachers to maybe make a shift to different types of assessment than just, here is a test, fill in the answers. Because that's how we assess our students. That's how the world works, but it's not the best way to learn what they know. So we've been working a lot with encouraging our teachers to try new things, to do things like Flipgrid and using informal assessments as part of a larger lesson, like with Nearpod, to get that mastery of content that way. We are also approaching it from our teachers of, like, they take their classes every other day. We split our day. That's how we did it. So they have periods 1 through 4 on day A and 5 through 8 on day B. So really, we only have a couple of class periods. We're taking it slow, but we are encouraging them, start looking at your syllabus, looking at your curriculum. What are the key things you need them to have as a takeaway? And you are going to need to figure out a new way to approach that, because your traditional way, your old syllabus, it's out the window. It's already shot. It's already gone. You've lost 10 class days. So let's start reassessing. Let's start problem solving instead of just lamenting. And we use Teams, and Teams only shows 4 screens at a time. So like what we're seeing now, where we see everybody's screen, it's a little bit different. And teachers are very worried about, well, is the kid in my class? So we're also encouraging them to give assignments, give content that the students, they will watch and they will get something out of it. It's okay if it's not the way we would have done it in the classroom. It's okay if they maybe checked out for half of your class period, because they're doing that in person too. It's the same problems are going to be happening. They're just doing it at home, not necessarily here. So we're really trying to encourage them to think of things in a new way. Also realize that those same problems that they used to have, if they had classroom management problem before, they're probably still going to have a digital classroom management problem now, but approach their curriculum in a new way, to reassess in a new way, using like problem-based learning, project-based learning, informal assessments. There's so many other ways to do it. And this can be sort of the impetus to like try something new, to reassess. And also my toddler just locked himself in the bathroom. So I will be right back.
These are the challenges we have. I love it. I love it. This is real life, right? We cannot hide behind social media during these types of meetings. So
Nope.
Vanessa, what do you have to add to that?
Hey, so, I would love to see us doing more with the digital aspect in elementary. It's funny, I've seen all the memes, I'm sure we all have, go around that say, oh, now you want to learn about Google Classroom, but you didn't want to, so we see these things and I laugh and I joke, but it's, you finally, people are realizing, hey, this could help me, this could be beneficial, and they're seeing how it can be used in their classroom, and they're willing to try something new. They have a little more time. We decided we have so many parents that are still working. We have a lot of, as all districts do, the healthcare workers, postal workers, just jobs that John Deere, that, Caterpillar, they have to continue to work. So then we get the messages that the parents are stressed. They're not getting to the assignments at night because their kids at daycare, or they've got an older sibling that's watching them. And a lot of our parents, the feedback that we got from them, we just said, well, let me back up for a second. We sent out a survey to the entire district, and we sent it out and asked for a few different questions. We asked for what kind of access do you have? Do you have access? What kind of devices do you have? Do you have phone, PlayStation 4? Because I saw all over Twitter, people are posting about you can access Classroom with PlayStation 4. So if a kid said, no, we don't have access, but, oh, we have a PlayStation 4 and I play it, Fortnite, right? Hold on, you do have internet access, so just trying to pull that in. But then we took all of this, asked them what building, and then we were able to disseminate that information and figure out who responded. We had over half of our parents respond to that with every student, with all of those kids. And then they picked them by classroom and tried to figure out target-wise who does have access, who does not have access. And a lot of the teachers kind of already knew because they've been checking in. But the results that we got back were we had more parents and kids without access than we had originally thought, which is what prompted the access points on the outside. But we also found out that we have more staff members than we thought without quality access at home. And so that became another issue because we can't get them into the building. We can't get them, well, we can, but it's limited. So then the feedback from the parents was also, I kind of need more concrete paper, like I need something to check off. I need that feeling of this task is done, this task is done. And they didn't want that digitally, at least for elementary, because they were used to so much of the paper stuff coming home already that we ended up deciding for elementary that over the next 2 days, we want all of our elementary teachers to come up with 2 weeks worth of stuff and have that ready to go for sending home by mail on Friday. So I think that's a lot to ask of our teachers, but I also understand how the parents are wanting some of that paper pencil, because if they get home at night and they can't navigate this or that, or they don't have reliable access, because we are such a rural area, that's hard for our parents to communicate digitally back to us or even do some of that digital learning, as much as I would love for them to do that. And I think moving forward, we might come up with a better idea for that. Like I look at my daughter's in first grade there, and she's going to get this packet of stuff. Well, we've been able so far to keep up with things that have been sent home digitally and connecting with our teacher online and doing that. So is the pull there, for me, is that going to be, as a parent, do I need to do all of this packet material, or can I continue with online? Or are the teachers doing double work with online stuff and packet work? And so I think at an elementary level, that's where things get a little tricky. When you've got a place like rural, maybe where you've got less people with access, because you've got to pull to kind of go both directions, because you have half the kids that can and half the kids that can't. And so I think that's going to be our biggest challenge moving forward, is how do we keep the teachers from doing double work, but also encourage them to use the digital tools that they have been using, or to try to get those parents to use their phone for other reasons, not just Facebook, get them to download that Zoom app, or get them to download Flipgrid and use that. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Switching gears just a little bit, we had a question yesterday that was really interesting about how are we better engaging our high school students? And I'm just curious if anybody has any advice on how to help those students who are at that level, not necessarily elementary where they have to be monitored or watched or assisted, but how do you encourage engagement with the older learners that are at home with their parents right now? Does anybody have any experience with that?
Our school is doing a lot, mostly centered through social media, of putting out, mom duty, of posting regular questions for student feedback, like submit a photo of your workspace, submit a photo of you and your pet. more of the community aspect of it. So the communications and the social media have been taking care of that aspect of it. The guidance counselors have been scheduling sessions with their students on their caseload through Teams. So they do video conferencing calls with their students as needed that way. And then if this is continuing past our April 8th return date, they're going to start doing video morning announcements and things like that. And we're going to make like a team that everyone can access, and they'll post daily announcement videos there. We do morning prayer because we're a Catholic school, like morning prayer, things like that as sort of like a community space. And then they're also going to use that same space to do, like, we have an activity period for clubs and things like that. That's at the end of the school day. So they're going to do virtual activity period where somebody will do a cooking demo, and like the football coach will do some sort of at-home body weight workout or something like that. So they're looking right now, they're starting to schedule like alum and faculty, parents, and students. They're looking to do 2 to 3 days a week, but they could end up with 5 days a week if we get enough response. And that's going to start if we don't come back on April 8th. So that was sort of like our second wave of everything. Once we figured out the e-learning piece and we got like the academics taken care of, that is now starting to gather steam, starting this week, sort of in preparation for moving into spring break next week, where we can kind of reassess, reevaluate, get ourselves together to then like launch full force the week after.
So I'm not at the high school this year, but most of the high school people I worked with still are emailing me with lots of questions. And so for us, we were really focusing on that connection this last 2 weeks. We think that was probably important, just to find out who was accessing and how often they could get in. Teachers in our building are all across the district were told to take attendance today, just to kind of say like, who have you engaged with and who you haven't, so we could come up with that action plan of who aren't we connecting with, so we can follow up with them to find out if it's an internet access issue or if it's a motivation issue or what it isn't. But I would say that any way that teachers can get kids to comment or collaborate on a common document, whether it's been a Google Doc or whether it's been Flipgrid or whether it's been Padlet, that has been a really great way for students to see that other people are also participating. It's not just them. And they have been much more engaged when it's more of a community of participants and they don't feel like they're isolated at home. And so while I know our teachers are still sending out screencasts of themselves and forms for the kids to fill out, the feedback that I'm getting from the teachers is the more things that they're commonly collaborating on, it starts to snowball because they see, I'm not alone, I am actually doing this, and so is everybody else. Kind of that positive peer pressure kind of thing.
I like that. I think that's really, really important. And what I really hope about that is that continues once we reconvene. How powerful will that be if that's the new norm in how work, collaboration happens in education? So that's phenomenal. We're at 1:08, so I do want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of those of you that are in the meeting today. So clearly you joined for a reason today. So we would just want to make sure that the reason you joined, that you're getting an answer to that. So for those of you that are on mute or haven't posted a question, please let us know. I see that we have some instructional technology specialists, librarian, an assistant principal, high school science. So please let us know what your specific questions are, and you're more than welcome at this point to come off mute if that helps as well. Yeah, you're very welcome. We are looking forward to continuing these throughout the time that schools are out. What we also love about these events is that, again, they're organic. We never quite know what's going to be brought up or what needs there are, but we also feel that that models individualization that classroom teachers are doing every day with their students as well. So you're very welcome, and I agree. I do think that despite this being a fearful time, as Nia puts it, that there is some good that is going to come out of this for the better education for students. So again, please feel free to pop some questions into the chat, or if you have something very specific. We have 3 phenomenal educators on the call today who one of the things that we kind of talked about too was just the opportunity to brainstorm together. That's what I love working with my own team is, we might throw a question out there, an idea, and then we, kind of get to talking about it and come up with a solution. So Judy's asking a question: how can I have a virtual book discussion easily? Not recommending Google Meet to be with students at this time.
I would recommend Flipgrid for that. That is actually super simple to do virtual book discussions through there. Students can record their responses to whatever prompts or questions, and then they can also record responses to each other's videos, which you can turn that on or off. What I love about Flipgrid, and the reason that it can be scaled from like pre-K all the way up through seniors in high schools and adults for professional development, is that there's so many different settings. So you can like lock it down completely. You can leave it wide open to do all of the things, or anywhere in between. And one of the options they have is students can record responses back and forth to each other. So I can watch student A's response and then watch student B responding to student A. I can chime in as the teacher as well. And there's just so much you can do with it for lots of different things. They have a really great, they call it their disco library. It's just a library of sample lessons that you can pull in and add into your class instantly. So I know that there's a lot of virtual book discussions that are already there that you can kind of scroll through, find one you like, and just drop it into your class and you're done. And it's great. And it's device independent, or it doesn't matter whether you're on a computer or a phone. It's super simple to do on a phone. You can do it here. It's so great for everybody. And even the community, you can have it as like a hub where people can submit videos of what they're doing at home. And that can be something you use as part of your school's community mission to kind of keep everybody still feeling like they're part of a unit. There's just like, I could talk for an hour on what you can do with Flipgrid. There's so many options, but virtual book clubs or discussions, there's tons of stuff on there about it.
Colleen, can you also mention, because for me, for instance, so we do some activities in some of our ISTE certification trainings, and although I am on video right now, it's not always very comfortable for me, especially when I'm kind of producing something. So can you kind of talk about, I love that feature. Okay.
So there is a ton of things you can do to start editing your video now. They've dropped in like a video editor. So as a teacher, when I present this to teachers, the number one thing I get back from them is like, they worry about this that's happening, that everyone's worried about their double chin or like how it looks. Like kids don't notice that. They don't care. They don't even clock it, because if you've watched your young person's Snapchat, like they make that face on purpose. So they probably just think you're being cool. So that's option one. And then option two is when you're in Flipgrid, there's lots of things you can do if you're not comfortable with your face showing that you can do to cover your face. One is a simple, you just cover your screen as you're recording. I've had kids do that. So it's just capturing your voice. They have emojis you can drop onto your video. So I've had kids blow up an emoji so it covers their face like the celebrities do with their kids on Instagram and Twitter. They also have a whiteboard feature where it whites out the screen or blacks out the screen, and then you can like write or annotate if you've got a computer that has like a stylus. But you can also do that just so your face isn't showing on the screen. So it doesn't have to be video of your face if you're not comfortable with that. You can also set it up so using the other camera, So where you're recording things that you are seeing. So it doesn't need to be just your face. It's kind of like Snapchat for schools, but you can also flip that camera and use it to show, like you can demonstrate something. You can show what you see out the window. You can show what's going on in your house. Like it doesn't need to be your face if you don't want it to be your face. You could record your feet for all they care. Like they don't care. You just have that camera and you can record your response. I also love that there's a time limit on it. So you can make the videos max out at 15 seconds up to 5 minutes. So you don't have somebody rambling on and on, kind of like I'm doing right now with like no end time. Like if I had an end time, I'd be a lot more concise in what I'm saying. So that's also great for these sorts of open-ended things where kids are just gonna be sort of tackling it on their own.
The other thing that I love about Flipgrid is you can upload a video. So if you previously made it elsewhere, so I use Chatterpix a lot for that, because you take a picture of something, you add in a line, and it looks like that thing's talking. You can upload those Chatterpix videos or anything else that downloads as a video MOV file. You can put that Flipgrid too, and kids can get creative with that.
Like they're using Screencast-O-Matic or Screencastify to make a screencast, like here's how to walk through this problem. And then the kid watches that, and then they're assigned a problem number. They make their screen the whiteboard, and then they show their math problem in Flipgrid as they're walking and talking through it, because that's just a new way of assessment now. Like show me in real time that you can solve this problem, as opposed to submitting a worksheet with the answers on it that I don't know who did it, if you did it, if you had somebody else do it, if the internet did it for you. So that's part of the new way of assessing that we're really pushing our teachers to have to embrace. To kind of go back to that other question, we're using that as an example a lot, like a show what you know, as opposed to submit what you know, if that makes sense.
Great point, Colleen. Kristen also put in the chat, if you are nervous to start Flipgrid, the question and responses in Google Classroom is a great way to have a conversation, a smaller stepping stone for the tech nervous. I know Judy, and again, Judy, not to put you on the spot, but feel free to come off mute if you want. I know Judy's asking the question, and she is in an iPad one-to-one district. So just to clarify, Flipgrid, and Lindsay, you might be able to answer this, you're more familiar with Apple, works easily across all devices.
I've got an iPhone and it works on my iPhone, and I've got a Windows device and it works on that. It works through the browser. It works anywhere. And the nice thing is it's the new hot thing for about 2 years. Microsoft bought it about 2 years ago. It's all of there's no premium level access, just everybody has all of the tools. And there's a ton of resources out there. So depending on your learning style, whether you want a PDF, you want a workbook, you want a video, there's so much out there because it's been like the new hot thing that everybody's learning for about 2 years now. So you have lots of options.
I actually do one with my own kids. So we have Read With Us Flipgrid. I share that out on social media so that anybody can add a book that they're reading aloud. So my kids don't just listen to me every night. They have other people that they're hearing from. And so when people access that link, they don't need the app. They can still look at it. But if you are an iPad district, they will need the mobile app to record on it. So they can look at a Flipgrid in the browser, but if you want them to create it, they have to download the mobile app.
I do have a Flipgrid tutorial playlist. I just dropped it in the chat window, and it included, I made a video that teachers can send to students of how to access it, because I think that's important too. Not putting that additional thing on the teachers that are trying to just get through their day while they're like parenting and teaching and dealing with their own stuff. There is just a video they can send saying, there's an assignment in Flipgrid, here's how you access it. And then they just need to grade it.
All right. So for those of you that are following along here still, if you have the chat open, Colleen did put the tutorial playlist in there for you for Flipgrid as well. And just just so everybody does know, you will receive the recording of today as well as the chat resources that everyone's providing within the chat links there. So other questions? Again, feel free to put them in the chat or feel free to come off mute if you would like. You don't have to come off video to come off mute. You can stay hidden on video. So if questions want to come in, let's go ahead and finish up though in the last 10 minutes. And we'll have Vanessa, Kristen, and Colleen kind of share if you were to be asked the question today of next steps, or where you want to, what advice would you give to someone in the next steps of this e-learning environment? What would that be? What would your recommendation be?
I can hop on. I guess my biggest advice is to, just like you would with your classroom, come up with a routine. Find your tools, find your places that you want kids to be, and even if you can, find a time that you're gonna make sure. We have our teachers posting by 9 a.m. every morning. I advised some of my teachers to tell parents, like, I'm gonna be open to email. I'll be sitting by my email between these hours and these hours and these hours. So it's routine. Parents know they'll get an immediate response from a teacher during those times. And then pick that platform, whether it's Flipgrid or Google Classroom or whatever other tool you're using, and kind of just ease your way into that routine with your students. And that's what I've been telling my teachers is, don't keep looking at all the things that are going on, but don't feel like you have to do all those things. Find the things that works for you and your students, and get that routine going just like you would for your classroom. And then if we keep going and it's April and May and we want to try a couple new things, do that slow, do it one thing at a time and test it out and see how your kids respond. Because I do think that we're probably going to have an extended opportunity here to try some things out. But no one has to try all the things all the time, right at once. So those routines for your kids. I got to hop on 3 phone calls yesterday, Google Meets. I cannot tell you how happy the kids were to see each other. So if there's any way that your kids can connect a couple times a week and see each other's faces, please find a way to do that. And that's, my teachers are giving each other that feedback, so I don't even have to say it. But I think that that's a really great thing for them to be able to see each other's faces. I know for places where the kids don't have access readily, even if a teacher could share photos via email or, something where they can share photos of each other's faces, I think that that's going to be a really big important thing during this time where the kids are apart.
Kind of along those same lines is to keep it concise with what you're using. So pick 2 to 3 things that you're doing well. So pick one thing that, like if you could boil down to, okay, I do PowerPoints and I do discussions. Pick one thing that does both or one thing that does each of those really well and focus on those. My director of technology shared this article from EdTech Magazine that I just dropped in there into the chat window. There's a little video on that. And if you start at, I'm typing it into here, 1:30 in the video, it talks about the importance of focusing on just a few things, having somebody be the gatekeeper in terms of technology, because just because we have the ability to go start using all of these apps does not mean that we should. Because we don't want to be using technology just for technology's sake. We don't want to use the new tool just because it's fun. We want to be using purposeful technology because our time with them is so limited now. We got to make the most of what we're doing. So really defining what your process is for if you do want to use a new app or a new website, how do we make sure that we're using, or we don't have something else in place that already does that? And then how are we going to train? What is going to be our process? How are we going to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing? instead of just ripping off the Band-Aids and having fun, because it's going to get to be too much really quickly.
Fabulous points, Colleen, and thank you for putting that link in there as well. Vanessa? Vanessa, you're on mute.
I thought I clicked the button. Thanks. Just like she was saying, not doing too much too fast. I think keeping those kids as much in a routine as possible, without necessarily scheduling out their day for them. I got a message from a colleague, and she said, "Hey, what do you think about this? Like, this is kind of what I just broke this down to look like." She took a picture of what she's got ready to send home with kids. And she is very much sticking to what they're familiar with this, for example, like she was going to start out with like CNN 10. They they watch that every day. This is how they respond. So she's asking them to keep up with that. But she said, well, since it's going to be more print than digital right now, I'm going to have them do Time for Kids because we have the print version of that. So I'll send that home with them instead. But I'm going to leave that CNN 10 access available for them as another opportunity, and they could make that choice between the digital or the paper copy. Just sticking with something they're used to. And if depending on how long this goes, after everybody falls into a new routine of what they're accessing, how to access it, and how to communicate with the teacher, I think later on, like a month from now, if we're still in all of this, if you wanted to try something new at that time, try one thing at that time and see how it goes with the kids. Because there's nothing saying that you can't try something new like you would at school, in the last couple months of school, but not doing too much too fast when the kids right now are just trying to get access or trying to get into a routine at home. And then we talked about just making sure that like those relationships are met, was another, like we had talked about at the beginning, that big push for that. The guideline that we were given for giving work home for students was between an hour and a half to 2 hours, with quality over quantity. Don't just shove worksheets at them, but give them quality things to do with about an hour and a half to 2 hours of work a day is what the guideline was for us. Just to give teachers kind of a point of reference for how much, because I saw that in the chat was like, well, how much is too much? And I've seen, we've all seen like Twitter, people saying, well, I'm required to send this out and this out. And I mean, they're giving, 5 to 6 hours of work every day for the kids, but you can't possibly structure their day from 8 to 3 like you normally would and provide them with the same amount of content and resources. It's just not possible. But quality over quantity, and then making sure that the kids are familiar with it and build that from there. I think that's probably the best place for us to start.
Fabulous advice, Vanessa. Completely agree. And I may start using quality. I might create a new hashtag quality over quantity, and put that in everything I push out right now, because I think that sums it up very well. And I know that KJ Kerr, I believe, hopefully, ironically, I don't know if the coaches saw the question that you posed, but I think everybody actually summed up their advice for moving forward kind of in a way of answering that question. Stick to, great. Glad it answered your question. So we're almost at that 1:30 mark. So a huge thank you to Vanessa, Colleen, and Kristen for joining us today and sharing their expertise. And I'm sure everyone saw how passionate they are as well. And what I love about our IDEA community is how incredible everyone is in willing to support one another. Beyond this, I know Kristen, Colleen, and Vanessa, if you guys wouldn't mind also maybe putting in your preferred ways of people reaching out to you, that would be great as well. We really are fortunate to have an amazing supportive community. So please reach out to any of the 3 of them or any of us at IDEA as well. We're more than willing to also look at, creating more online virtual meetings and/or webinars that specifically do meet your needs. So if you feel that there is a need out there that we aren't addressing, please make sure that you let us know what that might be so that we can help you and support you in a whole nother way as well.
Whitney's also added the link for your PDHs. It's the bit.ly IDEAcoaches 325. So you can fill out the form to get your hour PDH for joining us today. And thank you so much, Vanessa, Colleen, and Kristen, for helping education continue to roll. We appreciate your time here today as well. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. And if you take a look, like I said, we'll get the chat and the videos to you as well. Thanks to Kristen, Colleen, and Vanessa for putting their contact info in there also. And Vanessa makes a good point. We have been tweeting out during this also, so check out the hashtag IDEAIL or hashtag IDEAcoaches. You can see some information and continue the conversations there. The IDEA team will stick around for a little while longer if anybody does want to ask any additional questions or give us any requests as well. So thanks for joining, and don't forget, tomorrow at 1:30 we'll be back.